2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
Grok Talk, Grok Talk, Grok Talk. I got a room full of people here. I got Skip Murphy. I got Mike Rogers. I got Greg Moore. I got Ed Nail. I got myself. I'm the one doing the talking. But hey, all the microphones are on. We're happy to have you with us. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to have Stacey McCain on, Robert Stacey McCain, banned from Twitter fame, in about 20 minutes. So stay tuned for that. But right now we have a recurring guest, actually, now. Chrissy Harbin, who is the Director of Federal Affairs and Strategic Initiatives for Americans for Prosperity. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Steve. Always great to be with you.
Good. Glad to have you here. Well, you know, we talk about Greg Moore every time we have you on, so we brought him in this time.
I know. It's a special treat. Hey, Greg.
Good morning, Chrissy. How's the weather down there?
It's warming up, thankfully.
Now, Chrissy is originally from Wisconsin, so the cold weather is nothing to her.
Some of these phones going up.
It's swimsuit weather here.
Oh, really?
In New Hampshire, Chrissy, when the weather goes above 25, the shorts come out.
That's true. That's true, especially if there's no wind.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes, that's pretty important. So Chrissy's here to talk to us about something going on in Utah.
Absolutely. This is something really concerning. Actually, it's happening in Utah and a number of other states across the country, and also here in Capitol Hill, and that issue is online sales taxes. It's something very concerning.
A Republican lawmaker has proposed some legislation to introduce a 4.7% sales tax on Internet commerce. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, and his name is Senator Kurt Bramble. He's from Utah. He's actually also happens to be the president of the NCSL, the National Council of State Legislatures, which is a membership organization of state legislatures that has made it a priority to pass online sales tax legislation across the country. And this is a direct challenge to some Supreme Court decisions here in Washington that have said that a business has to be located within a state before it has to collect and remit sales taxes. And this is going to pose a lot of problems to families and businesses.
Absolutely, and here in New Hampshire, we're one of the handful of states, along with some states like Delaware, Oregon, Alaska, that don't have a state sales tax. And this particular piece of legislation, coupled with another priority of the NCSL, which is the Marketplace Fairness Act, could have a huge impact on New Hampshire online retailers. Now, the Marketplace Fairness Act would be a disaster for New Hampshire online retailers because it would turn not only would they lose their competitive advantage of being in New Hampshire and not having to pay a sales tax, which is a huge issue because we want businesses to come here for that advantage, but secondarily it would turn the New Hampshire small businesses into the tax collectors for 9,600 county, state, and local taxing authorities across the country, which would be just a administrative disaster and a burden that frankly would make it nearly impossible for people to get by without buying a massive product from a company like, say, Amazon, who is a big supporter of this, as well as just the first of all, the advantage we have here. The bigger issue could be the House version that actually would basically say, well, New Hampshire, you don't have a state sales tax, so we're going to pretend you do and have you charge that tax instead. So maybe, Christy, you can address those bills.
Absolutely. At the federal level, what's really concerning about the initiatives at the federal level, namely the Marketplace Fairness Act or the Remote Transactions Parity Act that's sponsored by Representative Chase Fitz on the House side, is the fact that they will undermine tax competitiveness at the state level. So what do I mean by that? That means that state leaders choose the tax environments that they want to have. And in New Hampshire, you can see that state leaders made a decision to not enact a sales tax. And you can see how these different tax environments produce different economic results across the states. I think it's very clear in northeastern states because you can compare the progress in New Hampshire with states like New York, or Connecticut that have very different tax environments. So the problem with these bills, with the Marketplace Fairness Act and similar plans to enact taxes on online sales, is that they will force New Hampshire families to face a tax hike on online sales.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said earlier about this Republican state senator participating with NCSL, which is a very progressive version of the conservative one, who now I'm having a senior moment. I can't remember the initials, but is always being, Zandra Rice Hawkins of Progress, Granite State Progress, is always down riding and making Alec, that's it. Always making sport of the legislation as if it was just absolutely evil. But here we see, more taxes coming out of this other one. I don't know how conservative the Republicans are in Utah, but the fact that you've got a Republican in this NCSL and the whole topic of, Trump's ruining the Republican brand, I look at stuff like this that is closer to home in each state where Republicans are acting against what they say they stand for is worse at ruining the brand.
It's funny how the Marketplace Fairness Act really moved forward under the leadership of NCSL when former House Speaker Terry Norelli was the president of that organization. Gee,
little connections there. But Chrissy, what do you see? Do you have any comments on what I just talked about? And not to just take us off into the wilderness.
Yeah, what's really concerning about these state efforts and these federal efforts to enact taxes on online sales is that really the biggest supporters for these are Republicans, the party that purports to be for limited government, that purports to be for low taxes, that purports to say that they want lower spending. But what we have here is a lot of what we hear often from Republicans who support these plans is a lot of politically charged talking points that really gloss over some of the direct and significant harms that they will pose to people. I think you could make an argument saying that states, if they want to, it's their prerogative to choose their tax environment. But the issue with these online sales tax plans that we're seeing right now is that they're an effort to tax outside their borders. What's happening here is that, faced with, with difficulties in revenue, faced with often budget deficits, we hear state legislators say that they want to enact an online sales tax on remote sellers instead of making the hard decisions to live within their means and make cuts elsewhere in their budget. So our position at Americans for Prosperity is that state legislators and the federal lawmakers should instead prioritize existing spending and not pass these online sales tax plans that pose a lot of constitutional problems.
But it's free money.
We get the same situation here, Chrissy, when people start talking about federal money, as if it sort of is airlifted in from a helicopter and dropped right in the middle of the State House, as if it didn't come from federal taxpayers. But it's as long as it's tax dollars that aren't coming from your citizens, it's somehow okay to basically raise taxes as long as the constituents that you have to face in November aren't the ones who have to pick up the tab.
But we are all the time.
I have to admit, Kelly Ayotte's actually good on this particular issue. She's been very strong against internet sales taxes and defending that particular part of the New Hampshire advantage. How does the rest of the landscape look as far as stopping this kind of stuff?
Well, unfortunately, we see a lot of support on Capitol Hill here in Washington. I know it's really disappointing. I have the vote count up here, and actually the Senate recently voted back in the 113th Congress. They voted on the Marketplace Fairness Act, and it passed overwhelmingly, 69 to 27. Now, obviously, the makeup of the Senate was a little different then, but it had overwhelming support from Republican legislators. Actually, 21 Senate Republicans voted in support of it, and only 22 voted against it. So clearly, they're split half and half. There's a lot of opposition among House leadership to pass the online sales tax plan. this would go through House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatt's committee, and he's an opponent of the Marketplace Fairness Act, so that's good. But clearly, the fact that there is such a split among congressional Republicans shows how important it is to contact your members of Congress and tell them that the MFA is bad policy and that you encourage them and their colleagues to oppose it.
Now Chrissy, if a bill like either the Senate or the House version were to become law, can you talk a little bit about the impact it would have in states like New Hampshire who don't have a sales tax, how it would suddenly start putting pressure on legislatures in those states to say, hey, listen, if we're going to pay these taxes anyway, why not just pass a tax of our own?
Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of unintended or maybe often intended consequences as a result of passing a federal online sales tax at the state level. And this is going to really open up a can of worms in states like New Hampshire that don't currently assess sales taxes. It remains to be seen how the legislature would react. And actually, since you're on the ground, Greg, I really defer to what you think the New Hampshire legislature would do. There's a lot of things. One is it could try to offset this tax increase elsewhere, but that seems less likely than creating some other sales taxes or some other taxes that would really just make it more convoluted. At the end of the day, what we're going to see is that these kinds of plans make the tax code more complicated, harder for people and small businesses to navigate, and it has a host of constitutional problems. So the short answer is I think we'll see a lawsuit. I think we'll see this make its way up to the Supreme Court. Hopefully we'll see maybe a non-sales tax states band together and bring a suit that shows how this harms their state. It remains to be seen what happens. I wish I had a crystal ball, but I unfortunately don't.
And so these are individual states voting to collect sales taxes on internet sales, correct?
Correct.
And what if the selling states simply refuse and say, never mind the Supreme Court, we don't care, and say, Commerce Department, do your job, interstate taxation is illegal?
Yeah, I think these are some of the issues that would be certainly discussed as what I think an eventual lawsuit would travel through the states. Very clearly what's happening is that you would have people living in states that don't currently assess online sales taxes or sales taxes suddenly be opened up to the taxing jurisdiction made in other states. So in New Hampshire, remote sellers would all of a sudden have to comply with the higher sales tax structure in states like New York. So it's certainly very concerning. This would undermine tax competitiveness and essentially just be a logistical nightmare and a tax hike for people and businesses.
All right, Chrissy, we're out of time. Thanks again for being on the program. I'm sure we'll have you on again soon.
Absolutely. I hope so. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, you're welcome. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Chrissy.
All right, this is Grok Talk. We'll be right back with Robert Stacey McCain, banned from Twitter. Stay tuned.
Excellent.